patient flow. We cover the outpatient services, which a number of patients who are suffering from breast cancer would actually benefit from. And just as I mentioned, we've adopted what is called risk-based financing, just in appreciation of the fact that some conditions are a lot more expensive than the others. So instead of lumping the diseases together, we've isolated the 6 most common non-communicable diseases in the country and adopted an enhanced financing model for them, just in appreciation of the fact that it costs a lot more. So cancers, cardiovascular diseases, asthma, and what is called COPD, chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, mental health conditions, sickle cell anemia, and diabetes. The reimbursement amounts are higher, just in appreciation of the additional costs and to be able to reduce the out-of-pocket payment that the patient has to meet for that. The other is the oncology benefit. The oncology benefit covers chemotherapy. I think it's been explained what chemotherapy is all about. It also covers radiotherapy. That is the patients who need radiotherapy sessions. It covers brachytherapy. There are specific types of cancer where the type of management that is needed is called brachytherapy, so it covers that. It also covers PET scans, and for PET scans there is PET-CT, there is PSMA PET for prostate cancer. All those are covered within the oncology benefit. Then from there is the imaging. My colleague mentioned about the types of different types of imaging that would be needed when it comes to management of cancer. So in this particular case, we've been covering the MRIs and the CT scans. And from July, we actually introduced fluoroscopies and mammographies in the scope of cover for patients who need them. But then the access is still a bit limited because of the number of providers who are able to do that and offer quality service, because it's not just about paying for the service, but also quality service. The reason, what informed this is basically the trend that we've seen as far as cancers are concerned, because the benefit for cancer management in the country was introduced in 2016, but over time we've been able to collect adequate data to show the types of cancers that are most common, which section of the population they affect, and the likely impact of, in terms of the financing, in terms of how much the fund was paying, how much is being paid in terms of out-of-pocket payment, that is the bill that has to be met by the patient, and how much it costs the health system. Because for every day that a patient ends up being admitted, that is a lost income to that patient. So the question is, how much is that over time? So from the data that we have, breast cancer is the most common, cervical cancer is the second most common, prostate cancer, third most common, gastric cancers, fourth, and then colorectal cancers. Those are the 5 most common cancers that, in terms of the trends that we've seen over the last 5 years. Then the other benefit that would directly look at when it comes to the cancer patients are the surgeries. So we cover a scope of more than 600 different surgical procedures, and a good number of them will actually directly benefit cancer patients. And from the data for the last financial year, that is July 2020 to, or rather July 2021 to June 2022, about 3.8 billion shillings was spent on cancer management, and of this, 29% was actually because of surgical interventions for these patients. So that's the scope of benefits as far as cancer patients are concerned.
All right, excellent. So does the NHIF cover all the cycles of treatment, or is it just a certain number of cycles?
Okay, thank you. When it comes to the scope of cover, I've mentioned that it was introduced in 2016. Some of the challenges that were there was, for one, we didn't have a patient registry as a country. So making an estimate of the number of patients who have cancer or who are being managed for cancer was quite a problem. Making an estimate of how many more cases are likely to come in, that is the incidence rate, was also a problem. The other problem was what is the cost? Because in terms of standard management, it had not yet been defined, as opposed to now where at least we have clinical guidelines and we have differentiated care models. So at that time, what happened was that the cover was introduced, but it had limits in terms of sessions of treatment and limits in terms of the cost per session of treatment. So the challenge that we have at the moment is that when a patient needs more than what the cover limits are, then that means the additional sessions of treatment will be paid for out of pocket. And that's one of the challenges that we have. We've done a review of the benefit, and we've taken an initiative over the last 2 years. We've worked with different stakeholders, and a number of them are seated here. And what we've come up with is what is called the differentiated care models for cancer management in the country. So we've looked at the most common cancers in the children. Those are the ones aged less than 18 years. And about 8 cancers account for 93% of all the cases. So we've looked at those cancers. Most of them are blood cancers, and a good number of them are actually being managed outside the country. So there's an issue in terms of capacity. We've looked at what is the most ideal way of managing it, as my colleagues have mentioned. We've looked at the cost of managing that. So that one has already been done. Now what we're looking at is in terms of estimates over the next 3 to 5 years, how much are we likely to spend if we are to cover the whole treatment plan. So the intention is to move from financing sessions of treatment with limits to financing the treatment plan with the outcome being the monitoring indicator. So if the reason for introducing the chemo is that the patient needs to be cancer-free by the end of the treatment session, then that is the performance indicator that we put in for that course of treatment. So I'll give an example. One of the most common cancers in children is a type of leukemia called ALL. And what we cover at the moment is about 42% of the total cost. So we appreciate that in case a patient needs that kind of treatment, then that means there's still a good amount of the cost that will be paid out of pocket. Now, we have the cost, we have the percentage. Now the next thing is, where do we get that money from? Because it will be good to introduce a project, but you know over the next 5 years, it will be possible to sustain that project. So we are looking at the resources so that we can be able to adequately finance that treatment plan. Now that's where the MOU between the MOH, Roche, that is a pharmaceutical company, and NHIF comes in. So in the deal, in this particular engagement, we are looking at what Dr. mentioned are the protein markers. So the type of breast cancer is the one that is HER2 positive. So in this particular case, there's a combination of regimens that is used, but the one that is not covered within the current limits of the cover is a drug called trastuzumab. So the company has a molecule called trastuzumab. The brand name is Herceptin. It is formulated as what is called a subcutaneous injection. It's just injected below the skin at 600 milligrams. So the purpose of this engagement is to avail this drug to patients over and above these cover limits, because at the moment what we are spending, or what is approved for spending, is about 600,000 per year for these patients. So they have reduced their market access prices. That is the engagement by Roche. And then MOH has pledged to do what is called vertical financing. There are additional chemotherapy medication that would be needed by this patient. So they provide that as part of this deal. And then NHIF takes up the costs and finances up to 600,000. So what is expected is that a patient who has HER2 breast cancer, instead of covering up to the 6 sessions of treatment, they'll be covered up to the 18 sessions of treatment because of this price negotiation that we've been able to achieve. And this is expected in government facilities, what you're calling the 10 regional cancer centers and the national referral hospitals for now, because it's more of a pilot, and then it's expected to be expanded later on.
Excellent, thank you. I think that's good news in terms of it is progress. Yes, yes. And, you know, as Mwende has told us, Herceptin, the very drug that the NHIF is financing in this MOU, is the drug that she had to get off because it was too expensive for her. Okay, so I have one last question for you. What happens if I choose to go abroad for treatment?
Okay, thank you. Well, it's one thing choosing,
yes,
and it's one thing being recommended. There's what is called self-referral, and there's actually a clinical referral. So what we finance is a clinical referral. There has to be a clinical justification why that treatment needs to be done outside the country. So when a patient is reviewed and there's a justifiable reason why the patient needs to go outside the country, then the specialist who is reviewing that case makes the recommendation. And this is approved through systems at the ministry. There is the medical council, which verifies that he is actually a licensed practitioner in the country. And then there is a committee at the ministry, and NHIF negotiates with the provider in the other country and does what is called a guarantee of payment. So if the management of the case is maybe breast cancer that is maybe metastatic or non-responsive to what is available locally, then that case is presented to the hospital there. They do an invoice in terms of the costing. NHIF undertakes a particular amount, and this is communicated back to the patient. So by the time you are leaving the country, you know this is what is being managed. This is the much that NHIF will reimburse you. This is the much that you will likely need to pay out of pocket to be able to complete your treatment there. And then the other thing that we do is that we do the care continuum. Once the patient has been managed outside the country and they come back to the country, then we need to make sure that they actually continue with the course of treatment. Otherwise, we'll be paying quite a lot outside the country, but then the outcomes will not be significantly different. So that's what we do as far as management of cancer outside the country is concerned. Now, in terms of figures, the most common reason for overseas referral over the last 3 years has been pediatric cardiology cases. I think that's why Mata Heartrun becomes a very important initiative, because the initiative is actually to manage heart conditions among children. Then the second and the third most common are cancers. So it is still one of the biggest challenges that we're having. In terms of amounts, over the last 4 years, we've spent about $6.5 million in patients who've been financed for treatment outside the country.
Wow, excellent. Thank you for that. Thank you for that. At this point, we'll come back to you, Mwende. So how did you support your treatment while you were still on medication? What did you do?
So we did another fundraising, honestly, because we could not pay from pocket for 10 sessions, you know, of the Herceptin. And by the time it was, by end of 2020, we had depleted the resources, you know, NHIF, my private insurance, and the finances. So I was just put on daily medication, letrozole, and an injection which I take every 3 months called Zoladex. So that is what I've been on in terms of medication, and of course regular checkups.
All right, excellent. And did you at some point find out that the mastectomy was, strictly speaking, not necessary?
Okay, so I try not to think of it that way, because, you know, I've already crossed that bridge. Initially, I did feel like I didn't have enough information to make the decisions. You know, if I knew then what I know now, then I would have gone for that core biopsy. But after now doing the mastectomy, I knew there was an option of doing reconstruction, but because of finances, that was not even an option for me. Yeah.
All right, which brings us to Dr. Martin Ajujo, right, of AJ Plastic Surgery Center, right over there. Before I ask him his questions, please remember there's an NHIF desk outside, so you can go pick up a paper, find out whatever information that you need to find out about your financing options and how the government will support you on that. Now, Dr. Ajujo, what options does a patient present? So for example, had you had access to what when they, had shown up, what are the options that you would have offered at that point in time?
I'll start saying that reconstructive surgery or a reconstructive surgeon is part of the multidisciplinary team.
Yeah.
So a decision to plan management of breast cancer is made in that team. And once you've decided the way to go, maybe for Mwende's case, we would have done what is called oncoplastic surgery. That means you use plastic surgery techniques to get out the cancer, but do breast conserving surgery. And then with that, for your case, you didn't need radiotherapy or just on hormonal treatments, you are actually a perfect candidate for that. So we'd have a discussion with the breast surgeon, Dr. Mutebi, discuss on, depending on now your age, you're 23, you have no comorbidities, you can withstand reconstructive surgery, then we'll have offered you an oncoplastic surgery. But I'll just want to start from the top and just define what is breast reconstruction after mastectomy. So these are procedures that we do to actually rebuild a breast that has been lost or been forced to be removed due to breast cancer or other illnesses. And this can be done either immediately during the resection or during mastectomy, or delayed at a later stage, maybe after treatment of either chemotherapy or radiotherapy or combination. And there are factors that will determine whether you're going to do your immediate reconstruction or a delayed reconstruction. For example, what Dr. Ome said, there are different types of cancer. If you have an inflammatory breast cancer, which maybe has affected your skin, then you not do an immediate reconstruction. But you have early disease, an isolated lump, you are no comorbidities, don't have cardiac heart disease, or diabetics, and we'll do an immediate reconstruction. And for you to do reconstruction, you can either use your own tissue, what we call autologous reconstruction, or artificial implants, which can be either saline implants or silicone. Most commonly we use silicone implants. If you opt to do silicone implants, then we have to do either stage to your chemoradiation. Other factors is your patient choice. I know breast cancer is overwhelming, the diagnosis, the treatment. So majority of patients at that stage do not want to decide, or they're not in a frame of mind really to decide what reconstructive option they do want. So you'd find a patient will go through the treatment through radiation, chemotherapy, then 2 years, 3 years down the line, then they'd come for the breast reconstruction. And at that point, what will be available to you would be either what we call flaps. That means we take tissue from different parts of your body. We usually take tissue from either your tummy, your back, as part of your gluteus. And this tissue is transferred either as a free tissue, what we call free tissue transplant. Basically, you take a part of your flesh from one part, skin, fat, and sometimes muscle, to reconstruct the breast mound and reattach your vessels. Or you rotate tissue from your back, place it, shape it, and then put it on the area of mastectomy to give you a breast. And depending on the type of mastectomy that you had, either nipple sparing or a nipple sparing mastectomy, if you preserved your nipple during surgery, then it makes it easy. So you just have to replace the volume. But if the type of breast cancer necessitated removal of your nipple, then it means after you've reconstructed your breast, you have to do what we call nipple areola reconstruction, reconstructive surgeries. Now, what will determine, let's say, whether you're going to do a simple, let's say, a pedicle, or just moving tissue, or a free? If you had a previous surgery, for example, if you had a C-section, you had a tummy tuck, you had any other abdominal surgery, it would be very difficult for us to get tissue around your tummy, because that's the commonest area for us to get free tissue to transfer. So for that, then we have to either go to the back or use any other free tissue. Then the other part is your patient choice and education, and this is where we have a really big problem in terms of awareness, because we've made good progress in terms of educating people on breast cancer and treatment, but we not offer breast reconstructive as an option, and not only to the public, but also even healthcare providers. I think we have to do more in terms of offering reconstructive option, because people who have successfully survived breast cancer, and they have lost their breast, they always have that reminder. They must have maybe a bra, some padding, to feel that their body image is still there, or still intact. So my plea is that we should offer breast reconstruction, especially as we plan on breast treatment, especially for early disease. Because for me, I'd say that in conclusion, breast reconstruction is a Bill of Rights issue, because you have to give the highest quality of care that you can give, and breast reconstruction is available. Thank you.
So my question is, does insurance cover this reconstructive surgery? Because it is a medical surgery as opposed to purely cosmetic. And then secondly, how much would it cost to reconstruct a breast?
Dr. Mtebi, you want to take that?
No, I think that's one of the challenges, and really one of the areas for advocacy, because just to chime in, breast cancer surgery has the highest psychological fallout, just in terms of body image and whatever. But I think one of the biggest challenges that we've had, and one of the areas that we're really pushing from the surgical advocacy standpoint, is the understanding around reconstruction, because most people or most care providers equate reconstruction with cosmetic procedures. But nobody wakes up and says, this is a good day to lose my breast or lose my arm. If we offer reconstruction for all these, how is the breast any different? So it's really educating all our healthcare providers, whether in the public or private sector, to really support our ladies. I think the other aspect that I just wanted to mention as well is that breast cancer doesn't automatically equals mastectomy, as Dr. Ari was saying. It's a very nuanced discussion, depending on if you have a single tumor, small tumor in an isolated area, you can do what they call breast conservation surgery, where you remove just that area. And you can do what Dr. Ari was calling oncoplastic surgery, which is a balance between, it's always about oncological safety. Can you get out the tumor safely? You take it out, send it to Dr. Wahome to look at the margins, make sure the cancer is out, and then you can do different maneuvers to reconstruct the breast and make it look pretty, but you're not necessarily having the entire breast removed. Or depending, you can still have a super early tumor, but it's in multiple areas. So in that case, it doesn't make sense to go and just take out one area. You need to remove everything. And in those situations is when you can actually do a mastectomy plus an immediate reconstruction and stuff. But yeah, those are the challenges that I think we really need. I think everyone in the room in our different capacities really needs to spread the word around. Reconstruction is an essential continuum of care. It's still part of the care, and I'm going to go off on a bit of a tangent. Reconstruction, and again, I'm happy that we're now starting to recognize the importance of the mental and psychological aspects of care, because really a cancer diagnosis is everyone deals with it differently, but you're almost going through the stages of grief because you're, grieving your old life and, sort of building back better and moving on. But it's still an emotionally distressing time. And we would routinely recommend, and most multidisciplinary teams have psychologists as part of the continuum of care, but sometimes the cost is very prohibitive. And when you try and get, the costings and things, patients actually say, Daktari sinipone kwanza, I'll go for the counseling later, but really it should be an integral part. So if we're able to bring up all these supportive aspects of care, whether it's the reconstruction, whether it's a psychological support, whether it's nutrition and education, I think we will have much better outcomes. And even when you're done with the initial treatments, the survivorship aspects, what are the concerns that are required, I think that's going to be really critical in terms of improving our overall outcomes and quality of life for our patients. Thanks.
Maybe just to chime in, I think I'll pick from what Dr. Mtebia said, we should be focusing on outcomes. And I think and I like NHIF is really looking into outcomes as opposed to just a cost of that surgery, so that we cover the entire spectrum of a disease. And most insurance do not cover reconstruction because it's deemed to be cosmetic. But I think there's nothing cosmetic about you getting back a part of your body that you've lost through disease. And the cost ranges somewhere between $500,000 to over $1 million, depending on the choice and the multiple procedure. For example, if you're doing just breast mount reconstruction, then you go nipple and epidural reconstruction, that will increase the cost. And if you have to do, let's say, free tissue transfer, that is a bit more technical, will take more theater time, more intense monitoring for it to take. So really, it's an expensive affair, but it's worth it because it's part of the entire spectrum of outcome.
Great, thank you so much, Dr. Jujo. Thank you to all of our panelists as well. I would like to say thank you so much for your participation. And you may now take your seats, have a refreshment, everyone except Mwende, because we still have one final thing that we need to discuss. So please, carry on. Now, oh, you want to, okay, so I have time for 2 burning questions. Okay.
Hello, my name is Susan Jenga. I'm a cancer warrior. 2016, I'm directing to the pathologist. 2016, I had a lump, but because I was fearing to go to hospital, I went 2018, immediately after the biopsy in April, in 2 months' time. When I did the biopsy, it was 2 centimeters. In 2 months' time after biopsy, it was 10 centimeters. So I want to ask, what happens after you do biopsy? And triple negative, why, I'm a triple negative, why we don't take tablets after the whatever?
Thank you so much. My name is Florence Maluni. I am a breast cancer survivor since 2016. I am looking at Mwende, and I'm just thinking, I was diagnosed at 49 years. I have not had, one, I want to ask Mwende, were you given any fertility issues information? 2, were you told that you could get your kids later? Were you given that information? Because personally, I'm dealing with what the reconstruction people are saying. Sometimes you find yourself, your self-esteem is so low because you are dealing with your body issue, issues. So the grief is real for a cancer patient. So I'm just wondering, how are you handling that grief that you may never have children? I'm just assuming that at 23 you didn't have a child. Yeah, so.
Thank you, Susan, for that question. So when responding to it, I'm going to tag team with Dr. Irene and Dr. Miriam. So feel free to chime in, so to speak. So essentially, when we say that your breast cancer is triple negative, what we are communicating to the rest of the multidisciplinary team is that the cancer cells do not express the protein, the proteins that I mentioned earlier. That's the hormonal proteins, and herceptin, that's HER2 protein. So the estrogen receptor and progesterone receptor proteins, when present and when expressed by the tumor cells, they indicate that there is potential benefit if you put on the therapy such as tamoxifen. Now, on the other hand, if the cancer also expresses the HER2 protein, the HER2 receptor protein, this also indicates that there's potential benefit if one is put on herceptin. Now, breast cancer is not uniform. It's quite heterogeneous. And that's why, for example, you find that there are all these many different categories. And then now, in addition to that, the tumor biology, as Dr. Mutebi and Dr. Ajuja pointed out, the way we're saying that each individual has a unique experience with a breast cancer, that's the same. It actually goes down also to the molecular level, because even within the tumor itself, you may have different regions of the same tumor in your body, but each having its own different biology. Now, the triple negative breast, for some odd reason, it seems to afflict African women of African, indigenous African women, and also women of African ancestry in the rest of the world. And studies so far done, there was a nice study that was done and published, should have either been 2020 or 2021, where they were comparing patients attended to at one of the hospitals here, specifically Aga Khan, Nairobi, and comparing the triple negative breast disease seen here with that seen in African Americans in Alabama and white Americans in Alabama. And what they found in that disease is that for that small sample they were looking at, the Kenyan women who had triple negative breast disease, they seemed to express a particular, we may call it a genetic profile, that was slightly different from that being seen elsewhere. The other thing is that with these triple negative tumors, in terms of their biology, they tend to have multiple routes of cell signaling that will then now fuel the aggressiveness of the disease. And that's why a woman who has triple negative cancer will generally tend to have a worse outlook or prognosis compared to one who does not have triple negative. And then these tumors have been shown to tend to grow much faster and to tend to spread faster than, for example, a tumor that is hormonal receptor positive and HER2 negative. But it's the whole cocktails of different, if I could put it simply, like if you were to look at a fire, the triple negative, they tend to have different types of fuels, petrol, kerosene, and everything being thrown in to fuel the growth and so on. So that it was triple negative might actually explain why it seemed to grow and progress much, much, much faster. And because it was triple negative, it would have been complete waste of your resources and also complete waste of your time to put you on targeted molecules comprising of hormonal therapy and herceptin.
Thanks, and maybe just to add on to Dr. Home's remarks, remember we said from the first that when you talk about breast cancers, it's like saying painkillers. So there's very different types of breast cancers, but the big categories: hormone-positive cancers, hormone-negative cancers. And what it simply means, we've talked about estrogen, progesterone, or whatever, but what we mean when we say a cancer is hormone-positive, it means hormones in the body encourage the cancer to grow, Okay, so if you, and sometimes we think, okay, I'm postmenopausal, I don't have any hormones. It doesn't mean your hormones are not there. It just means they're low enough not to give you a regular period. So if you have a hormone-positive cancer, then we need to suppress the hormone levels in your body to prevent the cancer from growing. If, however, the cancer is hormone negative, what it means is that it doesn't have any effect. The hormones in the body don't have any effect. So if we give you medication that is suppressing the hormones, we're just giving you the side effects without the benefit of the treatment. Now, Dr. Home was saying triple negative breast cancers tend to be a little more aggressive, and that's why, but we always say there's always hope. The thing behind, they tend to be more aggressive, but as Dr. Irene will tell you, paradoxically, they actually respond really well to treatment if they are going to respond. And so they're the few, there's a subset of cancers where you find you can actually get a complete pathological response where you go from a 5 centimeter to tumors completely disappeared. And so, oh, excellent, excellent. Yeah, so really it's just knowing the type of cancer that you have and then really having that multidisciplinary discussion, going a step further and saying beyond, yes, we have discussed what the treatment plan is, but what we're doing currently, and which is segueing into your question, is really having going beyond the tumor board discussing, but then now breaking that down to the patient, because one of the critical things, especially for young ladies and irrespective of any age, is around sexuality and fertility. And so even before you start the treatment, we need to know what are your concerns around fertility. We do need to discuss the options. Again, it's one of those things that we also need to advocate for because they are fertility options, embryo and egg harvesting, but they're currently not necessarily being supported and they are costly, but they are available. But we do counsel the patients on these options and they can make a decision based on finances. In addition, even when we are giving the chemotherapy and we know this patient is interested in fertility, maybe after she's recovered from her initial therapies, Dr. Irene will tell you we actually have fertility preserving regimens specifically for our younger patients that are actually designed to suppress the ovarian function but actually improve the recovery after your chemotherapy is complete. So it's a very nuanced and very tailored discussion that needs to happen even before any of the therapies are commenced. Thanks.
All right, then just very briefly to explain estrogen receptor, progesterone receptor, and HER2 receptor. The word receptor, really the way to explain it is think about a keyhole. Yes? A keyhole creates a space for you to come in and put a key. So on a normal day, the estrogen receptors, the HER2 receptors, the PR receptors, the normal hormones within the body come into that space, into the receptor, it receives it, and then takes it into the cell in simple terms and fuels the growth of the cancer cell. So when we give you something that targets that receptor, the hormone treatment that targets that receptor, it competes with the normal hormones in the body and sits into that receptor. So what does that mean? That the normal hormones that would get into the receptor and fuel the cell growth will not fuel the cell growth because there's something else that is competing with it for that space, and that's how those receptors work. So when you have disease that is not estrogen receptor or HER2 receptor positive, what that means is that those receptors are not there to receive these treatments that we would give, and that's why we would not give those treatments, because there's nothing to receive them. There's nothing, I mean, it's of no value. So I hope that sort of makes sense for you. But the patients who have ER, PR, HER2 receptor positive, there's a space for you to place something that competes with the normal hormones and chemicals in the body, and so in that way it stops the cell growth. And that's how we manage cancer using those targeted treatments. Thanks.
Thank you for that question. It's actually a really good question about fertility. Of course, at 23, I wasn't thinking about, having kids, but I liked having the idea of having an option in future. When I was first diagnosed, I was told that after now the 5 years of tamoxifen, then we can discuss about having children because the cancer was caught at a very early age, early stage, I mean. Now, the second diagnosis when I got, I remember thinking about fertility, but this was after I did my second chemotherapy. We didn't actually talk about fertility, and as Dr. Motebi has said, I think it's a really good conversation, an important conversation to have before. Even if you don't want to have children right now, you need to at least know what the chemotherapy or the treatment is going to, how it's going to affect your body. So yeah, that was a gap which wasn't filled. I will say again, because of the type of cancer I have, I'm not advised to have children. Basically, since when I'm having children, as the Dr. has explained, the hormones will be higher, and at the moment I am on, is it induced menopause? Yeah. Did I answer your question? Yes, well, I actually saw a doctor after, but now this was a bit late, after now the second chemo, and I remember being given the option, being told like I can first stop the chemotherapy for a while and then, see how we can harvest, but now the cost implications, so again, it was not an option for me, unfortunately. Thank you.
Sorry. So my question, I think I'm allowed to ask a question? Yeah, so my question is directed to Dr. Samson. I'm just curious, considering the pivotal role that the laboratory plays in terms of confirming, one, that there's cancer, and two, providing information, biological information on whether a patient will benefit from a particular kind of therapy, perhaps you could let the audience know whether laboratory diagnostics is covered in cancer care, and specifically breast cancer, and the scope of tests that are covered, and also the limit.
Okay, thank you, Dr. On the scope of lab diagnostics that are covered by the fund, we have defined a scope of tests which we are calling the basic lab investigations. Most of these are needed by a majority of the population, and we've looked at it in terms of the cost, in terms of accessibility across the country. It's largely available across the country. So it's not specifically customized to cancer care. So the likes of immunohistochemistries, the likes of testing for whether that protein molecules is HER2 positive, it's still not yet covered. But then we are having deliberations further on how we can reduce that cost, improve its access across the country, especially at the 10 regional cancer centers. And then at that point, that's when we'll be able to find out whether it's actually feasible to finance it. But the scope that is available are the other basic tests that would be needed, the likes of LFTs. LFTs are liver function tests. And then for a patient who is on Herceptin, for example, because of the side effect of the medication, there is a need to monitor the cardiac function. So the fund takes up the costs of at least 2 sessions of the echocardiograms that is used to monitor these patients. So there is still an element of out-of-pocket payment, but then we've reduced that bill by about 10,000.
Excellent, thank you. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I was going to ask if there's a gentleman with a question, but Dr. Wahome has taken up that slot. And we have a really, really, really short time. And I would have loved to take all the questions that we could, but we can't. But I do encourage you to take some time out to speak to our panelists individually after the sessions are done. So in the interest of time, we can keep things moving as quickly as possible. There are also stands outside, and amongst them you will see one for Go Care, which is a home-based care services. So in case you have a patient who needs home care, you want nursing assistance in your house, you can consult them. We also have All Med Healthcare Services, right? And you can speak to them about your health needs. Now then, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. Wende. So we had a question asked about your emotional health, coping with all of this, and how you handled it. So tell me, what about your cancer diagnosis changed your outlook on life? And did you have the necessary psychotherapy support in order for you to take the diagnosis positively, go through it, and come out the other side?
Yeah, thank you for your question. So I think Dr. Motebi mentioned something about now the mental and the psychological aspect of getting a cancer diagnosis. What we were discussing mostly was now the physical health. And for me, and well, after my first diagnosis, first I didn't want to talk about cancer because of my age, the stigma. You know, I was afraid what people are going to say about it. So I didn't seek any therapy. And after doing the mastectomy, after about a year later, that's when it dawned on me, and I realized, well, I can't wear some of the clothes, and I had actually, removed one of my breasts. So I did get into depression. I didn't know how to manage the emotional aspect of it. And at that time, I was announced that I was told I was cancer-free. So there's also the aspect where everybody wanted me to move on already. You're cancer-free, you're done, move on. And I also had that pressure on myself. So it was bad. I was in really bad depression, and then I sought treatment, therapy. And when I was seeking therapy, that's when I started now a different relationship with myself. Finding like different ways of loving myself and understanding that, understanding that if you have two breasts, one breast, no breast, that does not define your beauty. I did come from far, though, I have to say. And at the moment, sometimes, as Dr. is said, when you have a mastectomy, you have to wear a prosthesis. And sometimes I forget to wear mine. I'll be in a supermarket or at the shop, and when I notice somebody looking at me strangely, I'll be like, I forgot my breast at home. So I have to say, it has been a journey. And I have learned to come and love myself even more. I have seen, I have come to look now for the silver linings, after these two diagnoses. As I said, the second diagnosis, when I got it, I was told that the cancer had gone to one of my lungs. And being given 1 year, a day before my 27th birthday, that was a shock to me. But at that time, when I was leaving the oncologies at the office, I remember just thinking, okay, I have 1 year. What am I going to do within this 1 year so I can now live my life? And that changed my perspective in life. It changed it drastically. Immediately, I started this list, my bucket list then. Right now, it's my dream list. So I keep on adding on to it because I feel like, for me, it was a wake-up call to now live life more intentionally, more purposefully. it is, I'm not saying there are no challenges with the cancer diagnosis, but at the same time, I'm looking at the brighter side. I have done so many things which I could not have done if it wasn't for this diagnosis. One of the things I had on my list was climbing a mountain. And last year in September, I climbed Mount Kenya. I know. And then, thinking that that was the end of it, this year in March, I climbed Mount Kilimanjaro. I know, so I have done so many things which I wouldn't have done before. So I am looking for those I always look for the silver linings. And I urge everybody, because I feel like even if you don't have a cancer diagnosis, I'm sure you're going through a challenge. And if you look closer, you will find that silver lining. And that is what I live for, and I live a day at a time. No one knows what tomorrow holds for you or holds for me. So, why not live in the moment and enjoy life and enjoy that sunset or drink that water and just, feel the taste. So that is what I live for right now. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, Wende Mutiso.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for that. I believe that's been powerful and touching for all of us. Whether or not you have been diagnosed with cancer, there are important lessons there. Now, at this point, I would like to invite our commercial manager, Mercy Kamunya, to come in and introduce our keynote speaker. Karibu sana.
Well, thank you so much, Waiwa. I want us to start a bit. Just stretch a bit. Stretch. I'm not a Zumba instructor. Felt we needed to stretch so that as we go to the next session, we are stronger enough to listen and be fed by now our guest speaker. We can have a seat, and as we sit, let's give a clap to our panelists. They did a good job. So I don't want to repeat again what has been discussed about cancer. I think we've heard so much. In fact, I'm just thinking, how many more sessions do we need? Dr. Mutebi, Dr. Waweru, Dr. Wahome, and the rest of the team, Dr. Kahora. I can tell you, there's so much that we need to learn, and I feel we didn't even get to the tip of it, right? So we will create more sessions of this, and probably have more of us, just to learn and create that awareness. Someone may ask, why Zumba for breast cancer? And as we sat as a team and thought, what can we do differently this year for the Breast Cancer Awareness Month? And the team was, they came up with various ideas, and they were just thinking, do we do a walk? Do we do something that will excite, like even a party somewhere? And someone thought, why not just think of fitness? Why not just come together, we Zumba a bit, we shake a bit, and even as we just have fun, learn about breast cancer. And one of the things, and you've clearly heard, there's a lot of demystifying that needs to be done. So as Nation Media Group, and all the platforms that we have, we really have put a lot of investment on health matters. And we have platforms like the Health Diary in NTV. We also have the Health Magazine on Daily Nation. And Waiwa is doing some very good job on Nation Health. She has a platform where she talks about health. And more so, the other products, the Saturday Nation, BD Health was well represented here. They're all platforms that really focus on matters health. So fitness just came in to solidify the conversation, because even as we take drugs, even as we feed well, even as we do all the other things that we need to do, we need to be healthy, to live longer, and to live positively, as Mwende has told us. So at this moment, don't really want to take a lot of time. I want to introduce our guest speaker, a lady that I don't really want to use those words, but means a lot in my life. Because most of us have gone through so much. If you are to ask each one of us, your backgrounds and your life experiences, there's so much. And all of us run somewhere in the internet, and you're trying to get some content somewhere just to get encouraged. And in the process, at least there are people who are always there putting out their content, they are supporting us mentally, even physically. They may not be there in our houses, but we do what they tell us to do. We do some exercises that those Zumba ladies, like in the morning there's TV session, where you just put onto your TV and you're just doing some exercises with those guys. So we learn quite a lot on our platforms, online platforms. And I have learned about our guest speaker through the online platform, but also some people who have experienced most of her sessions that she's taken them through. Our guest speaker is Laimani Bidali. She carries a tag of moving women from stuck to significance. And today she'll be speaking to us on how we just need to take care of ourselves, be ourselves, even with all the challenges that we have, and we remain strong and very successful people. So Laimani is a founder and lead coach of Albastron Empowerment Limited. She has an experience, do I say, of more than 26 years, and has trained more than 15,000 women, both in class and other sessions, open sessions. And in addition, she has guided skillfully 500 women, let me put it that way, over 500 women into defining with clarity their purpose, and interacted with more than 25,000 through Albastron Open Days. Let's give her a round of applause. So as Laimani comes here, she'll be guiding us, and of course, she'll be telling us more on just how to empower ourselves as women and men. It's not just a women affair. We also have men among us, and we are all here to learn. So allow me at this point to invite Laimani to the stage to take us through the next session. Karibu, Laimani.
Thank you so much, Mercy. Let's appreciate her. Hi, everybody. Good afternoon. How are you feeling? Just one word. How are you feeling? Me, I'm the feely person. Okay? So I like catching feelings. Please throw feelings. I want to catch them. How are you feeling? Great. How are you feeling? Awesome. How are you feeling? Fantastic. Good. Okay? So I'm also feeling very empowered. Thank you so much to the panelists. I feel I'm living here with more information than I had. How many feel that way? Okay? And they have demystified so many things. I was hearing some of those terminologies for the first time. Okay. How many of you can say that the same? Eh? So we are living here much more learned, if I can call it that, but also much more empowered. It empowers you so that it reduces fear a little bit. You're not as afraid. And also, of course, just listening to Mwende and seeing her in person, in flesh, then we realize all things are possible with God, isn't it? All things are possible. There is someone who has survived and who is soldiering on and living a full life. And so that is possible for all of us. So now I was asked to come and speak during this event. I was thinking, oh my goodness, I mean, how shall we take it? Because when we hear about any type of cancer, all of us here, each of us, I have to say, have been affected in one way or the other. I think all of us either are dealing with cancer, managing it. Some of us have a close family member who is dealing with it. And some of us here are not even aware that we have cancer in our bodies. just seems to be getting more and more aggressive. And, you know, sometimes when people think about cancer, they think, oh, it's because of what I'm eating, it's because of this and this. Some of these have no explanations, my friend. You know, if you start looking at the reasons why, you'll not even be able to live, because you look at your microwave, you're like cancer. You look at what you're eating on a plastic container, you're like cancer. You look at drinking water, you're like, I mean, have you ever felt like that? Until you're like, if I looked at everywhere, I'll be so frozen. But then you ask yourself, then how do you explain some of the cancers in children? What did the child take in order to end up there? So some are not explainable. And because the theme is early detection saves a life, I thought it was important for us to stick to that as our focus. Early detection saves a life. And let me start by introducing Alabastro Network to you, because you've been introduced, I have been introduced, but I need to introduce my organization as well. Alabastron Empowerment Limited is committed to equipping women in identifying and overcoming self-defeating patterns so that they can live significantly. So we are committed to equipping women with tools and skills in identifying and overcoming self-defeating patterns so that they can live significantly. And so one of those patterns that we need to overcome, that is a self-defeating pattern, is this pattern of neglecting ourselves by not going for early detection. Okay? So I asked a few people, why is it, when's the last time you went for checkup? And why is it that we don't go for checkup? And the kind of answers I got, there were many, but the ones that kept coming up several times, one of them was, what you don't know won't kill you. Have you ever heard someone say that? What? That is true. No, that's a myth. It's a myth, but that's one of the answers that I was getting. The other one I got was, bora uhai. Then the other one that I got was, you know, in my family, and I think we had Mwende saying, even in my family we don't have cancer, so where am I going to look for something that does not exist? You know? So those are some of the answers that I was getting, but the one that I want to demystify today is what you don't know won't kill you. That is not true. Supposing you were walking somewhere in the park and you saw a lion. Supposing you have never seen a lion or ever heard about a lion. So of course you'll not be threatened by it, would you? You would not want to take cover or to run away because you don't know this thing. Now, will that thing kill you? Will it? I'm asking. A lion, do you think it will kill you? Because you don't know it, you think will it kill you or not? It will. Because, but if you had information, if you knew the dangers of this lion, what it can do to you, you likely take cover, you'll take precaution, you do what needs to be done. So I think we need to be aware that what we do know is important to us, because then we can know how to deal with it. How do we deal with it? So early detection, I think, has to do with us being brave enough to be vulnerable. Being brave enough to be vulnerable. How many of you here can swim? You're a good swimmer. How many of you just know the water in the basin and that's enough for you? You're like, bora uhai, this water is enough for me. Okay? I am one of the people who's learning to swim in my adulthood. And when I went to learn how to swim, I found some coaches teaching children how to swim. And I was thinking, who are these and who raised them? Because how they are teaching these children how to swim, these are little kids. They were holding these kids at the bottom of the pool, and they're being taught how to hold their breath for like a few minutes, and then they come back up. But when I asked them, why would you use such a vicious, for me it was such a vicious technique. They told me when a child has been at the bottom of the pool, they are no longer afraid of swimming because they're not afraid of going to the bottom of the pool. Because they have been there, they are familiar with it, and so therefore they're no longer afraid of drowning. So, and I thought that is what early detection is about. It's about just being able to be vulnerable, to go to the bottom of the pool, so that you're no longer afraid of swimming when should it call for that. So, one of the reasons why we don't go for early detection, that we think that cancer is a death sentence. And we fear that the ultimate is to die. But the thing about death is that all of us are going to die. First, let that sink in. All of us are going to die. None of us is living this world alive. You're not living this earth alive. Tell your neighbor, you're not even living alive. That ticket, you have it, isn't it? All of us. So this conversation is not about death. This conversation has to be about living. How do I live, and how do I live significantly? How do I live, and how do I live significantly? So let me start by just making you just a little bit rich for this one moment. Just take your pen and your notebook for a moment, and I want you to do for me, I want us to dream. Mwende has taught us about doing our dream list, not our bucket list, because we're not waiting to kick the bucket. We want to live our dreams, right, Mwende? That's what we want. So, supposing today, right now, just out of the blues, I just decided, or you just received 10,886,400 million Kenya shillings. That's 10,886,400. Have you gotten that figure? 10,886,400. Have you gotten it? Okay. And you're required to spend it all today. What did you do with it? What did you do with it? Just to spend it all today. What would be your priorities? The top 3 things that you do to finish that money today. You'd buy a house, okay? What else would you do with that money today? It has to be finished today. Has it become too much, guys? You look puzzled, like why today? Because we'd rather have it and then we can keep it somewhere, right? But this one we are not keeping is for spending today. Buy a what? A powerful machine. Okay? Mm-hmm. Sorry? To the showroom. Straight away to the showroom. Okay? Right, so today has ended. You wake up tomorrow morning and another similar amount has been credited to your account. 10,886,400 million. Tomorrow. You've just woken up like this, you're like, It's there. And it's to be spent and finished on the spot within the same day. What did you do then? Today you bought a house, tomorrow what do you do? Go to all the insurance firms and just throw the money to them. You tell them, chop my money, chop it, yeah, you chop it, okay, for medical cover, all right? Then, whatever you remained, whether you left in your account 5 million or 800 shillings, whatever you left, it's completely lost. If you leave, anything that you leave is not carried forward. Then the following day again, the day after tomorrow, you receive the same amount. What do you do with it? And the following day, and whatever you don't spend, by day 5, what are you doing with your money? You're just giving it away. Yeah. This is by day 5. You're not even reached a month of, of getting that money all the time. So, we do have such a bank. And this is a bank that is called the Bank of Time. And the Bank of Time, every day, credits, as long as you are alive and living and breathing, it credits your life with 86,400 seconds. So all I did was take the 86,400 seconds and multiply them by as dollars and multiply by 126 to get the figure I'd given you earlier. That's how I had arrived at that. But there is that account, and this is called the Bank of Time. So every day, each of us, even right now, we got credited 86,400 seconds. Because you said this is a conversation about living. So, what you do with that time is entirely up to you. But you cannot carry it forward. You can't say, because yesterday I didn't spend my 2 hours, God, you owe me. You cannot carry it forward. When you wake up the following day again, you get the same credit of 86,400 seconds. What are we doing with that time? Because the essence of life, or what we call the substance of life, is time. When someone is born, and on the day when you, because we attended funerals, and they write born in 19 dash and died in 20-something, that little dash there is the number of years. And the number of years is calculated in time. So what are we doing with our time? Because as long as we are living, we are getting this credit of time. I like my faith is very important to me. So allow me to give you this scripture that really matters. Ecclesiastes 9:11 that says, I returned and saw under the sun that the race is not for the swift, nor the battle to the strong, nor bread to the wise, nor riches to men of understanding, nor favor to men of skill, but time and chance happens to them all. Time and chance happens to them all. And as long as you are breathing, no matter what challenge you are dealing with, because, Mercy was saying all of us are dealing with some one thing or the other. Time and chance, that credit, 86,400 seconds is happening for you. And that's quite an equalizer. And what we're doing with it is what really matters. Time and chance is happening for all of us. And there's another scripture that says, anybody who is among the living, I think Ecclesiastes 9:4, anyone who's joined to the living has hope. Even a live dog is better off than a dead lion. So to be joined to the living is to choose to be on the living side. And so to live life fully requires that you get to know yourself. You get to know who you are and how you're showing up in life. How are you showing up? Are you showing up at 2%, 5%? Because you want to be joined to the living, not to be joined to the dead. Anybody who is among the living or who is joined to the living has hope. So it's about, how do I know myself? So I thought that it would be important for us to get to know ourselves a little bit more. Because you see, early detection is also about knowing yourself. The doctors here were talking about breast awareness. And I want to talk to you about self-awareness. And to show you, demonstrate to you that self-awareness is not such a bad thing. And neither is it such a big mystery. But there are people who go through life never knowing who they are, but they want to be known by another. When you look at intimate relationships, some of the fights and quarrels that people have is that you don't even know me. How many of you ever said that? Huh? You don't even know me, or you're just taking me for granted. What about yourself? Do you know yourself? Because unless you know yourself, you can't be able to introduce yourself to another. Or tell another, this is who I am, and this is what works for me, and this is what doesn't work for me. So taking the time to know thyself is what I want us to talk about today. So, I want you to clear your notebook, and on your notebook, I want you to write number 1 to number 18. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, all the way to number 18. I think everybody has a pen and everybody has a notebook. If you don't have, you can put your hand up, and we are happy to share the ones that are hanging around. Is there someone without a pen? You don't have a pen? Okay. Where are you? There's someone without a pen here. Yeah, there are two here. Okay, pen? Okay. Well, number 1 to number 18. Who else needs a pen? There's someone at the back who needs a pen. Have you written number 1 to number 18? Okay, so I want you to, once you've written number 1 to number 18, so on each, against each number, you are going to write a letter. I'll give you the option of the letter that you're choosing for yourself. Okay? It's just a letter, and you're going to choose one for yourself. So I will read some statements. If this, and don't overthink it. Here's the thing about, because it's about knowing thyself. Okay? First of all, put your hand on your chest like this and say, this is me. Is me. It's about knowing me. Okay? So be honest with yourself, because when the results come out, you can't say, this is not me. Okay? Because you're the one who wrote who made the choice or who chose the letter. So going to write, don't overthink it. So I'll give you two options. You either pick one or the other. Okay? So we're going to go to number 1, and I'll read a statement. If this statement is true for you, pick that letter that is true for you. For example, let's go to number 1. Number 1, I am more open to getting to know people better, to know people better and establishing relationships. Or, there's still number 1, I exert more control over who I get involved with, including how well I want to get to know them. So is it the first statement, which is S, or is it the second statement, which is C? The S is, I am more open. The C is, I exert more control. So you write either S or C. Shall we go to number 2? We're going to do it very fast so that then it gives you more authentic results that way. Number 2, C says, I focus on conversations, on tasks, issues, business, and subject at hand. So I like my conversations to be about tasks, issues, business, and subject at hand. Or, that is C. Or S. S, I allow conversations to take directions of interests of all the parties involved. Okay? Even though this may stray from business or the subject at hand, I'm okay. That is S. So are you a C, are you an S? That's number 2. Shall we go to number 3? Number 3. Now this time you're writing either I or D. I says, I'm a less frequent contributor to groups in conversations. Whenever I'm in a group, I don't contribute as much to the conversations. That's an I. The D will be, I'm a more frequent contributor to group conversations. That means I participate more. So you are an I or a D. That's number 3. Number 4, I, tends to keep personal thoughts or feelings private, sharing only when I'm asked to or if it's necessary. Or D, I tend to express personal thoughts or feelings about things, whether asked to or not. 5, I tend to make decisions based on objectives, facts, and evidence. Or S, I tend to make decisions based on feelings, experiences, and relationships. 6, D, frequently uses gestures, facial expressions, and voice intonation to emphasize my points. Or I less likely use gestures, facial expressions, and voice intonations to express my point. So D is more frequently uses gestures, I is less expressive. 7, more likely to make statements like, that's the way that it is, or I feel. That's a D. And I would say, I'm more likely to ask questions or speak less assertively. How does that fit in? As I understand it. So D, more likely to say, that's the way that it is, or I feel. And I is more likely to ask questions or speak less assertively. 8, more likely to expect and respond to conflicts. That's a C. You'll put a C. S, less likely to expect conflict and more motivated to personally deal with conflicts when they arise. 9, S, more likely to accept other people's points of view, their ideas, their feelings and concerns. Or C, less likely to accept other people's opinions or views or ideas or concerns. 10, tends to focus most on the ideas and concepts and outcomes. I think we have heard a lot about outcomes here. Or S tends to focus primarily on the interest level, personal involvement, or the process. Tends to focus more on the interest level, personal involvement, or the process. That's the S. 11, more likely to wait for others to introduce him or her at a social gathering. That's an I. Or a D, more likely to introduce yourself at a social gathering. I, more likely to wait for others to introduce him or her at social gatherings. Or D, most likely to introduce herself at a social gathering. Number 12, S, more open about own time involvement with others. C, less open about own time involved in others. S, more open about time involvement with others. That means these are guys who will go with the flow. If you call them, tell them there's somewhere we are going after this, I'll be like, let's one day. Okay? Are you the one who says, you didn't tell me earlier, you should have told me 3 weeks before so that I can be able to plan and incorporate it. So the first one is an S, more open. C is less open. 13. Are we all at number 13? Okay. C, likely to stick with own agendas and concerns while turning the power motives of others. Likely to stick to their own agendas and concerns while tuning into the power motives of others. Or S, likely to tune into others' agendas and concerns while minimizing any conflict or disagreement. So the S is, I will push my agenda no matter what. S would say, I'm likely to be more tuned to the agendas of others because I don't want any conflict. That is number 13. 14, tends to remain involved, that is I. I tends to remain involved with known situations and conditions and relationships. D tends to seek new experiences, situations, and opportunities. And let me say to you, as you answer these questions, don't answer don't answer from a place of wannabe, would like to, answer from where you are now. That is also 14, tends to remain involved with known situations and conditions. D tends to seek new experiences, situations, and opportunities. 15, likely to express own views more readily. That is a D. Or an I, likely to reserve the expression of one's own views. That is 15D is likely to express, and I is likely to reserve. (16) I tends to react more slowly and deliberately. D tends to react more quickly and spontaneously. I tends to react more slowly. D tends to react more quickly and spontaneously. 17, C prefers to work independently or dictate the conditions as it involves others. Or S prefers to work with or through others, providing support where possible. C prefers to work independently or dictate conditions as it moves others, and S prefers to work with or alongside others. 18, I likely to respond to risk and change in a more cautious or predictable manner. D likely to respond to risk or change in a more dynamic or unpredictable manner. I likely to respond to change in a more dynamic or unpredictable manner. Right, so what I want you to do now is to count all your totals. Totals for I, write I equals, count how many I's you have out of 18. Know then thyself. Know thyself. Early detection is about getting to know yourself. Now count how many D's you have. D equals, so you've counted your I's, you've counted your D's. Now count your D's, how many, and then count your S's, total them up, and count your C's. I'm seeing people looking up like they're trying to think how many. No, count the ones that you have, the ones that you are on the paper. So we don't yet know what this means, so we are being as honest as we can. It's because even before we had this exposure to this information, we didn't know all these numbers of positive and negative meant. But let's trust the process. So you have your totals. Okay, so I want you to take your total for D and your total for I. So take D minus I. You can either get a positive or a negative. Both of them are neither right or wrong, so don't panic. Is there someone who is floating? Are we all together? You've done D minus I. You have your total, positive or negative? Okay. I want to take your total for S minus your total for C. It can either be positive or negative. Do you have that with you? This one, I don't know. So on another clean piece of paper, you're just going to draw across just like that. Can you see just across? Just like that, okay? At the top, we shall write S. At the bottom, we write C. Okay? Then we write I on this side and D on this side. So look, at the top, we have S. At the bottom, we have C. This is I and this is D. Do you have that? Okay. So you go to your totals. So if you are to give these numbers, we say this is number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 till 9. So this we would say this side is plus 9 and this side is minus 9. Okay? Yeah? Then this side is plus 9 and this side is minus 9. We're just estimating because I just want us to just have a rough idea. It's not going to be very precise. So I want you to take your total for S minus C. Do you have that total? S minus C. And it's going to be along here, S minus C. So is it that positive or negative? So I want you to mark a star on where you think it is on either the positive or the negative. If it's down, it should be on the negative. If it's minus 3, just put a star where you think 3 would be. If it's plus 4, put it up. Anybody who's lost? It's a very simple exercise, and we are all doing very well. Then let's go to, we have done D minus I, or have we done that one? D minus I, again, the negative is on the I side, the positive on the D side, and again mark, where is your total on the D minus I? Is it here, or is it on the positive? Okay, then you're going to just join those two stars. So some of us, our box will be on this side. Some people, their box will be on the lower side. Others, yours will be on this side. And others, it will be on this side. Whichever side, just join the two stars. All right, have you joined? Okay. So where your box is, whether it's on, let's call this on the box A, or B, or C, or D, just write your name there, whichever side the box is. Just write your name there. So now let's come to the interesting part. I want you to put that aside so we come back to it after this, once we understand what it is that we're doing. Let's come to the interesting part. So each of us knows where our name is, which box our name is. So I want you to get to understand yourself a little bit better, and in the hope that we can be able to relate better. Look, we have done work with women for the last 14 years. And Alabastron deals with emotional wellness. And what we have found to be the main cause of emotional dysfunction and stress and other related psychosomatic illnesses has to do with relationships. Relationships that we had earlier on with our parents, childhood experiences, the relationships we are having right now with our significant others, with our friends, with our siblings, with our family members, with even our children, they could be causes of tension and stress. And that can begin to inflict within a person what you can call emotional wounds. So this process of getting to know yourself and knowing the people that you care about, because you don't relate with everybody in the same way, is very important because it allows you to know how to relate in a way that causes minimum emotional pain and relational pain and self-injury. Because sometimes we injure ourselves. Have you ever said something and then you wondered, why did I say that? Okay? Because we injure ourselves. So it will help us to be able to bring down that self-injury as well. So the one that we have used, the exercise that we've done, is based on the work of Tony Alessandra, who is an American psychologist, so it's not my own work. And he uses 4 birds. Birds, in African, you say bad, they sound the same. I'm feeling bad because of a bird that came and it was felt bad. So I'm talking about a bird, okay? He uses 4 birds to help us understand our own behavioral tendency and those of others around us. So the first bird that he uses is a dove. And there are some characteristics that we know about a dove. And some of us here are like a dove when it comes to how we relate with other people. We know that the doves are known as the bird of peace. So people who find themselves to be as doves, these are people who are very relationship-oriented. In interactions, they are more concerned about the relationship and the feelings of others than they are concerned about even what they are saying, even the subject matter. These are people who are the peacemakers, even in the family. You can begin to see some of your siblings in here. They like close and personal relationships. These are people who go for a meeting and then to ask you, how are you doing? How many children do you have? How is your daughter? How is your this? And then the next time you meet them, imagine they remember, because they are interested in the relationship. They will support you and they'll actively listen to you and to your concerns. But these guys find that they are slow in making decisions because they don't want to offend other people. So these are people who sit for too long before making even a personal decision. Should I invest, should I not? You, what do you think? Then they'll call like 10 other people. What do you think we should do? Are you going? Are you going for that event? Imagine, do you think we should go? I'm at Tusienda. I think let's go, eh? So they like that support and doing things when others are doing. They seek a sense of security and belongingness from others. Okay? They are good at gaining support from other people as well. One of their weaknesses, though, is that doves, if you find yourself to be a dove, is that they are quite unmotivated because they pick and they fuel from other people's emotions and energies. Okay? So they can procrastinate. They procrastinate a lot. They appear to be so self-protective and indecisive. They are fearful and they worry a lot. These are people, not warriors as in soldiering on, but they are warriors. You know, the people who are just warriors. They worry and they want others to worry. They tell you, are you worried? You're not worried? How can you not be worried? We have to be worried because they like that feeling that everybody is in the same boat. Anybody here thinks that they are a dove? Anybody? In the family? No, we don't have peacekeepers here. Ah, yeah. Let's see who we have. The next bird that Tony Alessandra uses is the owl. In Africa, the owl is seen as a bird of bad omen, but in America, where the test was developed, or in the West generally, the owl is considered as very wise. We say it as wise as an owl. Did you do better English? English companion? Yes. As wise as an owl. So owls are seen to be wise. So people who find themselves to exhibit these characteristics of an owl, these guys are cautious in taking actions and making decisions. These guys like organization and they like structure. These are your policy people. Even if you go with something they tell you, but the policy says. These guys, they ask many questions about specific details. When you tell me, when I look at your report on page 3, paragraph number 5, sentence number 3, you have used the words probability. What is the measure of that probability? Could you please expound it? very theoretical. They give you theories. They can be very critical because they will use their they like to generalize a lot. They like jumping from one activity to the other. These are the guys you meet on the corridor in the morning. They are full of life and they are like, hey, where's the hurry? You know? And they want to come. They want to sit at your desk and ask you, hey, when you're just working, like, this job will kill you. They want the social life, and they're good at persuading people. They are very good in persuading people because they like exaggerating. They'll make you feel good about yourself. They will tell you, hey, you're very good at doing this and this and this. They tell you, see, Aki, you just sort me out. They leave the work on your desk as they go to the party. Okay? They're very good at this. And the challenge with peacocks is that they can be quite indisciplined. They have, because they have a way of painting things with color and rose and throwing everything flowery. Then they leave things halfway. They leave projects hanging. They are not, they can be quite unproductive. A peacock can move from one desk to the rest. There are people who I call them, they shuffle around the organization with papers. They like walking around holding papers and files like this. But they're not doing any work. They just walk, ta, 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 ta. Hey, what's up? Hey, what's, Hey, what did you see? Then they pick the papers, they go to the next person. So by the end of the day, they haven't quite done much. But they have been very busy, okay? They exaggerate a lot. I mean, these guys, these are the people who they have a way of, I don't know how they keep an eye on the printer. Man, they know what's happening in the organization. Because, do you know what I have seen? I tell you, those are those guys, you know? So, anybody thinks that they're a peacock here? Okay, at least we have one. Okay? Then, we have, according to Tony Alessandro, we have some people who are. The final bird is the eagle. Eagles, you know about eagles? These are high flyers. The people who exhibit these are high flyers. They are people who are decisive in taking actions and making decisions. They like control and they dislike inaction. If they find you just resting, maybe you are just having your lunch break, they'll be like, when there's no work, what's happening? People have to be careful. This organization is going to shut down. People are just not working. You have to remind them, but it is what? It is lunchtime, yeah? Okay? They prefer maximum freedom to manage themselves and others. They are cool, independent, and very competitive. They want to win in the debates. Even in the boardroom, they will challenge you, not for any other reason, but to just win. They have very low tolerance for feelings, attitudes, and the advice of others. These are people who say, don't tell me about the labor pains, show me the baby. They don't be told that we went and then we met that client and then we sat with them for 2 hours. Peacocks want to tell you the whole story. And then we met some cops on the way and then these cops, those are peacocks. And eagle is telling you, do we have the deal? Yes or no? Do you have the? Okay? These guys work quickly and impressively alone. And they have very good administrative skills. The challenge with eagles is this. They can appear to be cold and unemotional because they're not interested in how you're feeling. You take your feelings to your friends. Don't bring them here. They can be self-sufficient. I don't need anybody. I'm going to get this done. They can be quite domineering and very unforgiving. If you made an eagle not perform, They'll wait until the performance evaluation comes and they tell you, do you remember? And I kept quiet. They can be quite sarcastic. They're like, so you think you're gonna do it, eh? Then they leave it there. They can appear to be quite cruel because of that not being emotionally or relationally involved with people. You will go for a party with an ego. You had a company party last night, but they come the following morning, you're together until 2 a.m. They come the following morning, they're like, where's our report? And you're like, really? You know? Because they couldn't be bothered. Anybody thinks that they're an ego here? Mercy. And everybody knows, eh? Okay? So, when it comes to the side, it's because you've not been saying where you are. Can I now tell you which side is what? So you have your name where you wrote. Go back to where you wrote your name so you can see where you belong. On this, let's start with the A. In the A, we have the doves. These are the diplomatics. Here, in the B, we have the peacocks. In the C, we have the owls. And here we have the eagles. So you can share with your neighbor where the true Msama Ukweli. Where are you? How many doves do you have in the house according to the results that you have in front of you? Just put your hand up so I can see it. Oh, wow. Okay. How many peacocks do you have in the house? Put your hand up so I can see it. How many white owls do you have in the house? Let me see so I can see it. And how many eagles do you have in the house? Let me see so that we can, yeah. So, thank you so much for participating in that small exercise, just to help you to have a sense of self-awareness. And if you think about the relationship where you have most difficulty, think about, as I've said to you, most of the emotional unwellness that we have come across, emotional wounds, we've seen that they come from relationships. The one where you have most difficulty, whether it's at work, whether it's with your spouse or with your significant other, whether it's with your child, where do you think the collision is? Is it because you have got different styles and you are unable, or you've been unable to adapt yourself to accommodate the other style? Or where is the most challenges? When I have done this exercise in a less hurried version, and we've had time to process it even in an organization and go much, much deeper and really have people sit in their different stations where they belong, eagles, peacocks, etc. When you ask the eagles, who do you find most difficult to work with? The eagles say that we cannot stand doves. We can't. These people are indecisive. They can't make any decision. They are they sit on the fence. They are too watermelon, if we can say that. Okay? When you ask the doves, who do you find most difficult to work with? They say, I cannot find it so hard to work with an eagle. They are so hard to please. And the relationship is just so mechanical. It's like, let's tick the boxes. Okay? When you talk to the owls, you ask them, who do you find most difficult to work with? They say, I can't stand a peacock. Keep the peacocks out of my life. These guys have no facts. They just come with stories from here to North Dakota telling you this is what is happening, but they don't have substance. When you ask the peacocks, who do you find it hard to work with? What do you think peacocks say? Everyone. Everyone. People don't like listening to me. People don't like taking me seriously. People don't like my ideas. People don't even understand. People don't even get me. Okay? Peacocks complain that people take them too much for granted. I don't know why. Maybe they'll tell us. If we had time, they'd have told us. Who haven't I talked about? Huh? Owls. Owls, I've told you, find it hard to work with peacocks. Owls find it hard to work with peacocks. So when it comes to this whole conversation about just knowing yourself, you can go and do some more research online. Find out about then, if I'm a dove, what does that mean? How, if I find myself that if I find my significant other, my spouse, is an ego, what do I do without so that I'm not crushed in the relationship? If I'm a dove and I've given birth to an owl, the one who asks you why, mom, why must you go there? But just give me some facts, then you feel you're like, whose child is this? Then you need to ask yourself, how do I be able to relate with this child in a way that edifies both of us? So you can see that just being able to learn and understand who you are is important. It is about just that self-awareness. It also helps you to become other awareness as well, or other aware. It is both powerful, it is liberating, it is empowering to just be able to know who you are. So therefore, when it comes to this conversation about early detection, saves a life. It's about knowing yourself. It's about that sense of awareness so that you can know what to do. So I want to give you this quote by myself that says, know then thyself, do not to others compare. Know then thyself, do not to others compare, until you have survey all you are, emotionally, relationally, in your medical space, health-wise. Survey all that you are, then you will have a plan. You will have a plan once you've surveyed all there is to survey. So, early detection saves a life. Have a good afternoon. Thank you all.
Wow, thank you so much for that session. You know, some of us peacocks are very embarrassed to admit that we're peacocks. But anyway, listen, so guys, bei ya unga imeshuka ama imepanda? Does anyone know? Okay, all right. In case imepanda, again, because you know this economy is the way that it is, why don't you do this? Pass by the unga group table, because they've got a variety of porridge, yeah, for all your needs. They've got flavored porridge, they've got porridge for babies, they've got porridge for lactating mothers, they've got all kinds of porridge that you might want to check out, and especially because we're due to have another Zumba session. So in case you're feeling injured after that particular, session, there is some healing porridge. I'm sure there's healing porridge somewhere on that desk. And they're also cooking up some samples, so you can feel free to pass by and, enjoy them. Now, RT Kimji, is she in the building? Okay. If not, then we will go straight to Peter Waweru. Is Peter Waweru around? Okay, all right, that's great. So we'll give Artie a few minutes to come in, check in with us. If not, then we should be able to wrap this session up. Remember, if you want to have your breast checked, if you want to have a breast exam, please, please, please pass by the Nyati room on first floor, because the nurses from the Aga Khan are waiting for you. You can also get your blood sugar. I believe most of us have had an opportunity to do that, to get our blood sugar and our BMI checks, so that you have an idea, how well you're doing. Don't be afraid to get this test. It's always good to know exactly what your health status is, so that in case there are issues, you catch them early when it's cheaper to treat them, rather than down the line when it becomes a lot more expensive. We also have a great, our thanks to the NHIF for opening our eyes to all of the options that they offer in terms of payment and how they can make your treatment easier on your pocket. We'd like to thank pathologist Lancet, right? For all of your, that illuminating discussion about what a pathologist does, right? Thank you so much for that. And then AJ Plastic Surgery Center as well. We are grateful for all of the information that you've brought to the table. And good people, please remember, you can support their work by advocating for reconstructive surgery, not as a cosmetic procedure, but as a medical one, because then it helps us restore our dignity and our self-esteem when you know that you have options and that you can get your breasts returned to you, right? Otherwise, Peter Waweru? All right, welcome. So Peter Waweru is from All Med Healthcare Services, and you're here to demonstrate a blood test. Okay, welcome.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Seems like you're getting tired, and I guess you should be excited for being here. Or maybe we need to stretch a little bit. Maybe we stand. Can you let's stand and make a little bit of, I think in the morning we had a lot of Zumbas, India. So why are we losing that appetite of Zumba? We a little bit stretch ourselves. And again, knowing what the talk has been about, I think we need to be a little bit more enthusiastic for this day. So, we can have a seat, thank you. Okay, my presentation was just to be done on a PowerPoint, but I can see probably there was no that preparation for that reason, so I'll just do a brief talk on the same. And I'm happy that at least a number of people have just happened to have come along our stand there, and I have seen people getting so much excited of what we are doing. What I want to talk about today is something that probably people have never thought of, and that makes you who you are. Something called body composition. If one asks you what is body composition, I'll remove the word body, I just say, what is composition? Composition means what? We load compositions and a lot of things in our when we in primarily and all that, comprehensions of that. Composition means like there's some content. So that content is what we are made up of. So we are not just a skeleton. If we remove that composition out of us, then I believe we shall just be left with a structure. So what we do or what we are here to advocate or to look into is, sorry, a minute. So basically what we do or what we are trying to establish here is what does it or what are we made up of? And one of the things that have come to be found in ourselves is that our body have something that is very unique. And all of us are not the same. And I am happy that even the doctors who are here were able to confirm that our bodies are not the same. So in this case, what you're trying to showcase is that don't go there out and say that because so-and-so was not able to make or somebody did not make it when he or she was unwell, but everybody can make depending on how we take care of ourselves. And like I say, we must live conscious. I believe, and the most unfortunate thing is that our society is living unconscious. Where you find somebody just go find a cure of food and you're just putting a lot of that, but after that you don't know how to go and take care of that. So you find like we're putting a lot of weight, a lot of stuff and all that. So basically what we are doing is now to create an awareness that our body has something we call composition. And in this case, the first case I want to see is that we're using a technology called bioimpedance analysis. Bioimpedance analysis, we're able to determine what is the amount of water your body has, what is the amount of fat your body has, what is the amount of the lean or the fat-free mass your body has. And on top of that, even the amount of meal loss, which are all the concerns and complaints that we are having with our concerns in our health. I want to consider, let's go to slide number 2. So what is body composition? It's a key component of maintaining good general health and longevity, and can be influenced by a variety of factors, including genetics, environment, and that. Assessment of body composition is essential for clinical and nutrition specialists, because during this one, they're able to determine the kind of treatment and any other interventions. By virtue of that, we realize that human age, or as we age, there's a point that our metabolic activity goes down naturally. And by that, we start losing the muscles. And losing our muscles, we are losing ourselves. By that, what we start getting is putting fats. And I know this is very common. We find after 50 years, we start getting heavy and all that. So what stops that? It depends on how healthy you lived before then. And that is what now our society has not been able to find out. That how healthy you live before 50 years is very important. That is what determines your future. How much you invested at your young age, not only about money, even your own health. Let nobody lie to you that how much you invested in your money is what matters. It's about even your own health. Invest well in your health, and your health will take care of you at your age. So by that, we're able to understand that a number of all kinds of diseases that we can be able to avoid, especially cardiovascular diseases, type 2 diabetes, and even cancers, and even avoid early mortality. All these we're able to move on and realize that body composition is key component for maintaining all that. So by doing all these, I meant is like, what do we need to do? We are able now to move on. Can I get the next slide? I think somebody else. So with that, we realize that our bodies have become so much depleted with what is necessary. And what I've realized in that is a significant decrease in bone mineral density signified osteopenia, which is very common in women and even men, while reductions in skeletal muscle mass. And then with that, we realize it kicks in the sarcopenia and cachexia. That's a common condition, especially for cancer patients. And this way we have seen most of the time that when chronic conditions kicks in, we start when, or most of the patients will come when they are very healthy. Then after some time, they are bedridden. So by the time you're going to the grave, you have no muscles, you have nothing. So some of these are conditions that you find called cachexia and sarcopenia. They will come because how we were healthy or how much we took care of ourselves, there will always be some of these conditions. Through weight tracking and calculation of BMI, which most of the people have always considered as a factor, these measures do not provide insight to the relative contribution, because the BMI and weight does not differentiate what is essential. It doesn't tell you, and that is why you'll find somebody who is very healthy or who have a lot of muscles, telling them like their BMI is not okay. So that is why in this case the body composition will be able to break them down and be able to tell you what is it that is essential in your body that's very important. So we're able to separate the fat mass and able to determine what is a fat-free mass. The lean body mass is very important for you, because that is what takes care or keeps your immunity up. So when you lose a lot, when you don't have that free fat mass insufficient in your body, then you end up having a lot of fat mass in your body. And we know what all those fats are capable of doing to our health. So therefore it is important that healthcare professionals have a critical understanding of body composition assessment and understand the limitations from all these conditions and how to determine all that. That is what is happening in this case, that when you go through that and we realize this is the amount of essential muscle masses in your body, on the lean body mass. Because that is the only time that you're certain that you're very healthy. So that is where now again you're looking, people come and say, oh, you're very thin. So you're very healthy. So the question is, someone will want to be thin because they think they're healthy. To be thin is not healthy. It's very unfortunate. To be thin, you're not healthy. Because by that time, again, then you have just undernutrition. You have nothing to take care of your body. And those are the moments you find people are sick. We've seen like the issue of now, they're drought now. Are those people not thin? But are they healthy? So who said to be thin is healthy? To be slim is not healthy. It's bad. Yes, that's bad. We want muscles. Yes, let nobody. You will come there and we shall test and we see. That is what is happening. So people have an assumption that they want to be slim. They want to just be thin and lean. So what we are looking at is that it is very important that you must ensure that you have sufficient lean muscle mass or lean body mass in your body. Because the moment you just starve yourself, then the body has no sufficient nutrition component to take care of you. And that is the same thing like when you find, if you want to take or consider, when people are admitted in the hospital and they are unwell, they end up getting thin but not at their choice. So what does that differentiate between you and them? You chose to be thin because you starved yourself. And that is why the need for you to be having sufficient lean body mass, because that is what takes care of your body. So when we look at it with the significant decrease in body, can we move on, I think? Somebody? Move fast with the slides. So in that case, when we look at it, is that getting better insight into your overall wellness starts with measuring your body composition. And by saying so, I said we measure the fat mass, the free fat mass, the bone mineral content, the body water, that is in terms of the intra and extracellular. There are people who are not even so good in taking water. That is still another issue. Let you not just assume that your body, because again, what you're doing, you are dehydrating your cells. So, all these proteins and face angle. Assessment of body composition sets recommend a clinical practice for hospitalized patients and those at least, because all these will lead to some conditions. Body composition has gained increasing attention in recent years. For that fact, it's important to measure in a healthy society. And that is why, to me, the whole thing is that we must understand what is our body composition. Moving from there, we need to understand body composition in oncology. Body composition in oncology, one of the things will be, how healthy are we in case we get unwell? We have seen people going through it and getting out so strong. And one of the things is because the factor that were considered before they got into that condition is that they had sufficient lean body mass, not the fat mass. The free fat mass was sufficient to take care of their unwellness. And I'm happy that at least we have some cancer survivors here. They can be able to testify that how they were. They were very stable. But those who happen to have very highly fatty in their body or obesity, they know what they went through. And in fact, even we had the condition of the COVID. I mean, who made it in life? We remember the fasting was like those who were so heavy and very, very unhealthy, or those who had obese. I'm sure most of them, we know some of our peoples and our friends happen to have been there. So the whole condition was because that lack of lean body mass becomes a major challenge. And that is why, in this case, the body composition will be able to guide you and see where are you. Do you have sufficient lean body mass or you don't have? Can you scroll on that? So the study of body composition, most provocative areas in oncology that offers tremendous promise to help patients with cancer live longer and healthier lives. This is an emergent recognition in body mass index, weight and divide by the square, because all these are basics. But identify patients who are at least to adverse health outcomes due to poor muscle health or excess adiposity, nor does BMI accurately distribution of adipose. So the challenge is that BMI and the weight will not be able to do that, but body composition will be able to separate all these things altogether. So recent observation studies demonstrate that muscles and adipose tissue distribution are risk factors for clinical outcomes such as postoperative complications, chemotherapy-related toxicity, and overall survival in patients with cancer. We have seen what is happening, especially when patients are going through the chemotherapy and radiotherapy. This is one of the testimony we get like from family members that patients at this point, some of them have even decided not to go to chemo because a patient goes to chemo, doesn't make it. Is that true? It's becoming a common thing in our society. That even patients have said, no, I don't want to go to chemo because a friend or someone in our family went to chemo and they didn't make it. But the whole issue is because how is their body prepared for that? It all depends on what their body composition has. Does it have sufficient muscle or the lean body mass? Because the reason is that the lean body mass is where the drugs or these chemotherapy drugs are absorbed into. So when at this point the patient presents themselves for treatment, remember they have gone a period of investigation. So most of the time they have lost a lot of their lean body mass. So what is remaining is only the fat. So when we get or we subject them now to chemotherapy, what we do, we deplete the remaining small amount of muscles. And that is why it is so fast for them to go away. Within the first or second, then they are done. If only we would have first of all determined what or how their body is ready for that treatment, then we'd be able to say, because what? You can only be able to bring up when they are still not initiated with chemotherapy or LT. Reason, we know chemo and LT is not selective. Once put in it, it kills all the cells. So when you even try to collect some of all these advances and whatever, then the body will not be able to respond. And that is why it is very necessary to determine what is the leadiness of the patient before you subject them for chemotherapy or LT. So that is where now the need of understanding your body compositions is very necessary, because even before you go for the treatment, you can delay it, but you make it. But the moment you go at that initial status, then the probability of making it is very challenging. Even in terms of complications, we have seen lack of sufficient muscles and lean body mass in your body will lead to complications. So most of them will not even make it after the post-operation, because what will happen, a lot of infections kicks in. Long hospital stays have been experienced because of that. So it makes you to understand your body composition because some of those decisions. Proceed. So we can see in this case what it means when you consider working with body, the BMI and body surface area vis-a-vis the body composition. You can see like in the first patient A and patient B, they have the same BMI and the same body surface area. That is 29 and 2 meters squared. But when it comes now to the muscle area, you see the patient A has 132 muscle area and patient B has 148. The VFA, which is the visceral fats, he has 211, he has 80, and subcutaneous. And this one you can look at the layer around the body. The outer layer is all about the fats. So when you look at that, then it tells you that patient A has greater visceral and all this, and that is where now you need to understand this. So the chances of the best patient in this case will be the patient B, because he has a larger muscle area than the patient A. Because you can see patient A has very small amount of muscle. He has only 132. But patient B has 140, 148. So that is why the need for active life and exercise is very necessary. And I'm happy what the team nation that organizes has created some awareness of doing Zumba and all those active life. Can you proceed? So the same study has come up and be able to see provocative areas in improvement not easier. So proceed. They're going back. You need to... There, okay. No, more than ever before, people are preoccupied with how much they weigh, and people will always walk to the gym just because they want to reduce on weight, but not knowing what they need to put on is the muscles. So you're getting it? So don't go to the gym because you want to lose on your weight. I hear even people saying that they are taking a lot of streets, madawa zingine watu mtu wakate weight. Never there. You need to put muscles in your body. Muscle is what absorbs. And even when you go to the hospital, see daktari number where the nurse will always try to check where the muscles are for injection. Why don't they go for any other part? Why would they not go to the bone or even to the fats? Because it is the area that absorbs and helps the distribution of. That is where there's so much of the cell and blood circulation. That one allows you now to be. And that is therefore to lose weight and excess fat. You can see how much all these countries were spending. So proceed. Being thin does not necessarily reduce one health risk. In fact, obsession with becoming thin often leads to serious eating disorders such as anorexia and bulimia. Thinness simply refers to weighing less than the recommended values in age, where leanness, on the other hand, refers to muscle, bone, and fat composition of your body. Although some lean individuals may actually weigh more than they are tabled and all that. Low bad fat lessens the risk of health problems, and this one will help you to develop complete physical fitness, body fat loss, and muscle growth resulting from exercise. And that is why I'm saying we need to do some exercise so that we build some muscles and we lose fats. Baseline data of nutrition, so that in case we need some adjustment on our nutrition component, this is done. Change due to growth and all that has to be done. And in performance of the examinee, we're able to monitor the progress in terms of regenerating and growing your muscles. Move on. What is monitoring in this case the skeletal muscle mass? Why are we monitoring? I think we already understand what it means. That body composition can also lead or can also be used as a prognostic biomarker to identify patients who are most likely to experience adverse events and toxicity. Cancer-directed therapy, for example, low muscle mass is associated with increased risk of major post-operative surgical complications. Low muscle mass is associated with higher overall and cancer-specific mortality in many cases. These are all the conditions that we need to understand. Proceed. What else are we monitoring? Something called the phase angle. Phase angle is the count of the cells. Cancer and cancer treatment cause damage to cells, and in this case, compromising immune function and reducing cellular integrity. By tracking phase angle, oncologists can monitor the cellular health of patients for early detection of symptoms and disease progression. So from the same machine, we are able to detect what is the response of the treatment. Is the patient responding, or is the treatment getting worse? That is all about the phase angle, and measure how cells respond. By just passing a certain amount of current, which is very small, we're able to determine how healthy your cells are. Because what happened, our cells are made up of water. So when we allow that small current to flow, the cells, healthy cells will allow it to flow with resistance. But when the cells are unhealthy, then they'll just be easy to let it go. So that is where now you'll find like the phase angle will be very low for an unhealthy cell. But for a healthy cell, the phase angle will be very high. Reason, the cell have offered very resistive flow of the current. So we're able to determine at what point are you breaking or at what point are you improving in terms of the treatment. So it makes a lot of reason that you must always ensure that you get checked on that so that at least you realize that at what point do you break even and at what point are you improving. Proceed. When cells are healthy, they can better resist this current utilized by the in-body resulting in higher percentage. And by monitoring segmental and whole body phase angle, oncologists can pinpoint the risk of specific comorbidities. In this case, by segmenting your body. What we mean by segmenting your body is that we cut you into fours. So we're able to know both of your core abs and both of your lower abs. That would mean like if a nerve, there's probably a chance or something like a breast cancer is kicking in, we will be able to detect it because the cell will start showing some signs. By phase angle, we'll be able to detect like on that either side, the cells are so much reduced. And the other side, they will be up. So that would be, because that area, it will offer very minimal resistance, but the healthy side will offer very high resistance. So you get it? So objective on that one is that, and again, it is non-invasive. So it doesn't have those aspects like you keep on injuring yourself. So proceed. Overall, phase angle has been considered as a marker for clinical conditions such as inflammatory diseases, which in this case we know about. Cancer is an inflammatory disease. Liver cirrhosis, heart failure, and other diseases. So not only for cancer we are monitoring here, even some heart conditions, even diabetes. So out of these, we're able to understand so many of your other functions and that to tell you. So all NCDs in your body, the machine will be able to bring them out at some point. And early intervention would always be addressed because of that. So phase angle as a prognostic marker of morbidity and mortality may be able to evaluate survival rates during cancer treatments, even on continuous treatments. We're able to see what is the progressive or the retrogressive process. Is the patient improving or is the patient not improving? And especially even in a review or if the treatment need to be adjusted. That is why at this point we're able to understand, do we need to review the treatment or do we need to change some drugs? So move on. So assessment in muscle losses. I talked about the patients who comes especially for NCDs. We've seen that most of the patients and NCDs start when they are very strong. Is that true? But then what happened after some time? Someone start losing. So by monitoring this, even when you're not unwell, and which I'm certain those probably can speak of that, they have probably seen like they started losing weight. So in this case, there will be loss of muscles. So by detecting that you're losing muscles, that is one sign of having an NCD or a condition. Either you have a diabetes, either you have a cardio, or either you have a cancer. Losing muscles is not normal. A normal person or a healthy person can only lose between 3 to 5% in a decade. Between 3 to 5% in a decade. So by coming to here and we check, like probably in a span of 1 or 3 months, you have lost more than 1% of your muscles, then you automatically have to seek an early intervention or some investigations. Because the normal person can only lose between 3 to 5% in 10 years. A decade is 10 years. So that is the condition I said about sarcopenia and cachexia. So you're not supposed to lose muscles. You either maintain or you increase. So by having such a check, we'll be able to see the last time you checked, you had this amount of muscles. But within a span of a short time, you have reduced. That is why we will not wait to say like until now you start feeling ABCD. So those will be some of the systems that the machines will be able to observe. And by interpretation, you understand what is your status. So intracellular water at the same time, the potassium leach fluid muscles and arm circumferences. I know you have heard about some arm circumference, especially your left arm. This one as well has been used so much, especially on breast cancers and all that. Because we talk on that because of lymphoedema. Because when you're healthy, then you'll have just a normal arm circumference. But when you have that kind of condition, when you have cancer or breast cancer, then you'll have some swelling coming, and that is when we say about the lymphoedema. So with that incidence of sarcopenia, by monitoring objective measures of muscle, fat, and water, medical professional can assess physiological changes and symptoms associated with malnutrition and cancer cachexia. So all this is all about your body composition, which you need to monitor. So it will always caution you in advance and alert you. Things are not doing okay. So you need to seek some further and early intervention. Several studies have shown decrease in lean body mass. The LBM is lean body mass, is associated with higher chemotherapy toxicity, as well as worse outcome in various cancer type. With that, when you realize, which I've seen most of the cases, is that patients will probably be subscribed to get some supplement onset on the treatment. It will always be ideal when all this is checked before you initiate the treatment, because you can collect it before. But in between the treatment, as I said, it is not easier to correct because cancer treatment or chemo and RT is not selective. So the moment you try to collect some of these damages, it becomes so difficult. But if you've noted that in between all early interventions, when you checked on the LBM, then you could have been able to correct that before you initiate the treatment, because it is easier because the cells are still active and able to absorb. That means like interventions can be put in place to help or increase the chances of survival. Again, in terms of the chemotherapy, as I said, most of the patients who have very poor or very low LBM, the chemotherapy will have very high toxicity rates in your body. Just proceed. And this is now the monitoring of sarcopenia. We said about monitoring of sarcopenia. This is now monitoring what I said, between 3 to 5%. A normal, for a female, you are supposed to have between 5.5, and for a male, between 7.0 up to 12. So you can see they're up, and things are something that is per. So proceed. For screening and monitoring of cancer-induced cachexia, measuring tool, Karolic, and all that, I think this is something that can be done from the same machine. So proceed. So this is the fat-free loss related to increased mortality, worse clinical outcomes, and impaired quality of life. In sarcopenic, obesity, and chronic diseases, body composition measurement with BIA, it allows tailored nutrition support and disease-specific therapy, not just any other treatment. Proceed. So strategic promotion of muscle maintenance. Someone would ask me, how do you maintain that? Disease onset and progression and treatment can cause changes in body composition despite all this. Weight maintenance, which would be overlooked by BMI, assessing muscle fat balance allows medical professionals to monitor the effects of treatment to prevent worsening outcomes. As you continue to offer treatment and you're able to check on that, or early monitoring, then you're able to review the treatment when the situation has not worsened. But now what happens is that when you continue the treatment, but the situation is you have no tools or you don't have a way to determine whether it is worsening, then you're able to review the treatment and be able to correct before the situation has worsened. Compared to cancer patient with skeletal mass, the SMI, which is what I said about, found that patient with low SMI, the skeletal mass index, had significantly poor survival. So when you have less SMI, which we have checked there between 5.5 for female to 7 to 12, and for male between 7.0 to 12, then you have very low chances of survival. That's why I said you must always maintain. And SMI is increased by very active life or sufficient muscles in your body. So proceed. So what about the localized fluid? It's very well known, like especially those who come from there, you'll know what happens when you have an edema. Localized fluid is when now the intracellular waters and extracellular waters. These are the water in the cells and the water outside the cells. So when the cells start losing their water to the outer side, then that now causes the edema or a condition where now the patient starts swelling, and most of the time it will cause some obstructions in airway and all that. So using the same machine, you're able to detect that one early enough and be able to address before the situation gets so bad. So you can proceed. Since cancer symptoms with all this, systemic inflammation, progressing fluid imbalances are linked to poor patient outcomes. So even from there, we're able now to monitor and be able to say that probably the patient has developed some edema, and by that one, you're able now to take care of that before the situation worsens. So proceed. Compared to standard measures, lymphedema, they found in bodies significantly correlated and can therefore be a practical tool in monitoring outcome measures after lymphedema treatment. In bodies more sensitive to subtle changes in lymphedema and can be used for long-term maintenance of lymphedema. So lymphedema is that swelling because of the fluids shifting. To predict, and then in-body simplified all that, and predict the presence of unilateral or bilateral legs and all that, all this can be done using the machine. Proceed. Assessment and monitoring of proteins. Why are we so concerned about the proteins? The proteins demand in patients in the hospital is very necessary. So it is always good as well to monitor, because from the same machine we can be able to see at what point is the patient that has the deficiency and at what point the patient does have sufficient. So that is a report that you're able to see. We can see a number of parameters that you're able to monitor. So all these are things that you can be able to get from there. Assessment of other nutrition status can as well be considered. So that is about the cardiovascular disease, type 2 diabetes, cancers, and all that. So you proceed. All these you can monitor from the same machines and go. Just go down. Body composition, again, I said about the cells. Muscle tissue is compromised of around 80% according to cells, and without enough water to transport muscle cell, protein synthesis decreases and protein catabolism breakdown increases. So by that you find like this could mean that consistent dehydration and hinder muscles growth. So without sufficient water intakes in your body, again, you realize that you're losing muscles. So it is again very important for you to understand when are you having dehydration or when are you overhydrated. So not just restraining yourself from intake of water, so you need as well to understand when do you need to increase the uptake of water in your body, because all these again has a reason why your body has sufficient muscles or sufficient LBM. Higher proportion of lean muscle mass in the body in relation increases lasting metabolic and overall health. So go on. So that is now managing that. Go on. In summary, better understanding of the law of body composition in advanced and metastatic cancer will benefit our understanding of cancer survivorship as a whole, particularly with respect to improved quality of life and tolerance of ongoing treatment. In turn, as exercise and nutrition-related research continues. So it is very necessary to consider exercise and nutrition as a component. The evidence supporting nutrition intervention along appropriate exercise is very necessary. And as you can see, the latest European Society for Medical Oncology clinical practice for cancer-associated cachexia recommends multimodal supportive, which includes nutrition support and muscle training. I said about strength training exercise. So proceed. Thank you for your listening, and to NMG for giving us this opportunity.
Great. Thank you very much for that illuminating presentation. So essentially, this is the machine that we use for assessment of our body fluids. Okay, excellent. So now you know, you can go find out more outside about how this machine works and how you can access its use, you know. Now then, we are coming to the end of this session, and I would like to thank all of you for staying with us, right? We are going to wrap it up with a final Zumba session, but before that, I would like to thank our sponsors. I'd like to thank the Nation Media Group as a whole, our commercial department, the Saturday Nation, and specifically the Saturday Magazine in the Saturday Nation. We also have Nation Health, which is part of Nation.Africa. So when you go to the Nation.Africa page, tap on the Health tab, and you will find all of the information that you need on a variety of diseases and conditions that you learn how to live with. I'd also like to thank the Aga Khan University Hospital, the NHIF, Pathologist Lancet, AJ Plastic Surgery Center, and Unga Group. Remember, all of these people have their stands outside, so you can go get more information, as well as get your breast cancer, status checked, have a breast exam conducted. Otherwise, thank you very much for coming. Dance by Moses. If you could take us through our final Zumba session, and after that, ladies and gentlemen, you will be free to leave. Please take it away. Thank you.
Wa umri wa miaka 28 peke yake. Jose, kweli wewe ni shujaa. Na mtazamaji, sina la ziada. Naitwa Cecilia wa Kesho Mathuva. Hadi wakati mwingine, endelea kutazama KTN News.
KTN News. Get the whole story.
African and Black diaspora film festivals are held worldwide all year round. These events highlight the excellence of African cinema and Black talent. On this week's episode of Our Voices, we will review the rise of Black cinema. We will also hear from advocates for an inclusive film industry, especially how African and Black film festivals in the diaspora help expand the entertainment industry to other parts of the world. Join the conversation each week right here on KTN News.
Renouncing his God was the starting point of his predicament.
So ikawa kila mahali nikikimbia hakuna usaidizi. Maki huyu mtoto sasa ni mgonjwa. My wife naye pia by that time ni mgonjwa.
And in that process he lost a child, lost everything, and before he could realize he was almost to lose his family.
Hapo ndio mahali ambapo nilisema nao mahali imefikia. Mimi na Mungu acha tukae. Kama Mungu anaweza kunifanya kiwango hii nikawa ninakuwa rejected all over, hakuna kitu ambayo kiko in my favor. So kasema let God be. Sasa mambo ya Mungu kwenda huko.
Let's unpack his story.
Paul Ogola, born August 20th, 1990, is a Kenyan-born actor.
I took a photo of me pointing at one of the Emmys statue. The thought in my head was that one day let our show Sense8 be nominated for an Emmy.
He has co-starred in 2 Netflix original series created and directed by the makers of the Matrix trilogy and Matrix 4, Sense8 Season 1 and 2 as Jella.
And I went for the auditions, got Nairobi Half-Life, and then after 2 years of silence, nothing happening, I quit acting because I had to pay bills.
And now, a juror in the 50th International Emmy Awards 2022.
It was so surreal for me, and I was like, wow, so it's real.
Make sure you join me this Saturday at 8:30 p.m. Kenyan time, only on KTN News. I'll be your host, Pasil Telewa. See you then.